What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Invincible Versus just came out recently, and I wanted to do a quick guest character wish list for the game before we get the DLC announced. We already have some of the DLC announced for the first season of DLC, but I wanted to talk about this now before the rest of it gets revealed, just in case there are any guest characters in there. I wanted to stick to comic book characters that are outside of Marvel and DC for these characters. They make the most sense to be included in this game, and they've crossed over with Invincible Versus before, for some of them. Invincible does a lot of different crossovers, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that we do get guest characters here. I'm going to go over two characters that I think are extremely likely, although the rest will be not impossible, but definitely less likely than the first two. The first, and one of the most likely characters for this game that I have, would be Spawn. Spawn has had many crossovers with Invincible in the comics and is owned by the same company, that being Image Comics. He fits the brutal nature of this game very well. I think it'd be very cool to see him in the game. While he did appear in Mortal Kombat 11 already as a guest fighter, I feel like his gameplay was a little bit underbaked in that game. I think being in a tag fighter will make him feel very different, and with the high speed and high flying action that a superhero game can offer, will really portray his powers much better than the grounded gameplay of Mortal Kombat 11. I see this one being very likely because they are in the same universe and he has even fought Mark before. However, easily the most likely character I think that is going to be in this game is Homelander from The Boys. The Invincible Versus game clearly takes most of its inspiration from the TV show that is made by Amazon Prime. The Boys is also a comic book that is made for mature audiences, which also has a TV show made by Amazon Prime. So I think it's very likely they will give them a character, and I think it's most likely going to be Homelander. It could be an entirely separate character, like Billy Butcher, Soldier Boy, or even The Deep, but any chance that we can have to put Homelander and Omni-Man in a fighting game together is always a good time. Honestly, you can make an entire 4-character pass out of characters from this universe, and I might even do that as a video, but I'll stick to just one. Homelander is the most superhero in their universe, and I think he would fit very well into this game. He could also take a lot of visual inspiration from the animated appearance that he has in the Diabolical TV show spin-off. That one is an animated show and I really like his design in it. Now I wanted to talk about some characters from other comic book studios, that being Dark Horse Comics. And the first character I'm going to put here is Hellboy. I think he could be a super cool character with tons of armor and awesome projectiles with his massive pistol and of course his famous grenade launcher, the Big Baby. Dark Horse Comics has already listed out Hellboy to the Injustice games, so I don't think it's a stretch to put him here. He's an interesting character because he could take it a lot of different ways with his gameplay and the fact that he is a good guy. He seems like he'd be a bad guy based off his appearance and his name, but he actually is a good guy. He was raised by the US military during World War II and was taught the values of truth and justice. He's very strong, but he also has a lot of different weapons that he uses, like this giant red hand, swords, pistols, grenades, and all kinds of stuff. He even uses some holy weapons from his world, which is filled with magic and monsters. I think if they were to add him into the game, they should go with a more cartoony look like from the animated movies. The live action version with Ron Perlman is fantastic, but the animated version just looks much more like the character, and removing the pupils, which is how he appears on the comics, does a lot to make the character feel more accurate. Also, if he could be voiced by Ron Perlman again, that would be fantastic. The other character I want to take from Dark Horse Comics is The Mask. Now, most people know of the character of The Mask from the Jim Carrey movie. However, the character of The Mask in comics is much different. In the comics, he's a lot more deadly and much stronger as a fighter. As the movie explains, The Mask takes your innermost desires and elevates them to an insane level where all your inhibitions in a public setting are completely removed. So because of this, he acts frantically towards coworkers and random people on the street with these elaborate dance numbers and crazy outfits. Although to be fair, the outfit is accurate to the comics itself. However, The Mask in the comics is much more deadly. He's much more of a loose cannon when it comes to violence and things like that. The movies show him much more as a comedic actor with some superhero elements when he fights the bad guys, but the comics are not like that. So if they take the comics inspiration for this character, I think he could fit right in with the rest of the cast. Obviously, he'd still be a more comedic character compared to everyone else on the roster, but that still fits the character itself. You have tons of cool attacks for him, like a hammer, tornado spin, and machine guns. And now for the verse of the day. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7 says, "Cast all your cares on him, for he cares for you." Another character I thought would be really cool to add is Judge Dredd from Rebellion Comics. Rebellion Comics is a British comic book company, and Judge Dredd is easily their most famous character. He used tons of different weapons like his lawgiver pistol, smoke grenades, and his motorbike. I think if they're going to add the character, they need to take more inspiration from the 90s film with Sylvester Stallone rather than the 2012 version with Carl Urban. This simply because the original movie has a much more visual aesthetic of the Invincible universe with the costumes and setting of the world. While the second movie does not look bad at all, I actually really enjoy that movie. The costume is a little bit lacking in my opinion. Kind of looks just like an average police outfit with a ton of different space cop type of things. It doesn't really look too much like the character outside of the helmet. I don't know if you would have Stallone voice the character again or not. I think it could be done by anyone because while Stallone's performance in that movie was fantastic, it's not something like Jim Carrey's where replacing him makes the movie unwatchable or something like that. He's not known for that role, so I think if we had just a normal voice actor do his parts, I think that would be fine. A lot of the cast in the Invincible game already is not voiced by the original. I think the only one is J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man. The rest are sound-alikes, and they sound pretty spot on. Now I want to go with a character that is not from the main character of their series, and that being Casey Jones from TMNT. I think it'd be really cool to include this character because TMNT would not really work in this game as a tag fighter. You'd have to make them all separate characters, and that'd be very difficult. Also, I know people are saying, well, you could add the Shredder, but he feels much closer to a Mortal Kombat character because of the ninja aesthetic and would fit well in that game. So I think adding Casey Jones as like a normal guy against all these crazy superheroes and villains would be really cool. I know that Cecil Stedman, who's already in the game, is just a guy with a bunch of different weapons, but he has the entire GDA, or Global Defense Agency as it's called in the TV show and comics, behind him. Casey Jones is just a guy with his brute force, rage, and hockey sticks. I don't think this is very likely. If anything, the Shredder or even Michelangelo from the last Ronin comic is more likely, but he would be the character I would love to see out of the comic book franchises if you're going to add a TMNT rep. And in case you're wondering, yes, the TMNT are comic book characters. They started that way before they turned into a kids franchise. For my final character, I'm going to pick someone who is not from the comics, but has appeared in some comics before. That being Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th franchise. You know I had to include my guy Jason in here. I think you could create a very cool character for Jason because you can make him a grappler with a weapon. He carries around his trademark machete, and if you can combine some of his command grabs, like Lucan, who is another fighter in the game, with the brute strength and range that Battle Beast has with his mace, you could create a very cool and powerful character. You could also give us something that this game doesn't already have, that being someone with a teleport. I would also love it if they gave him a Jason X skin. Multiverses did this, but MKX did not, so it'd be really cool to see that take inspiration from that incarnation of the character. Plenty of other characters in this game already have alternate costumes for their different super suits and appearances, so I don't think it would be a stretch. Jason has appeared in comics before in a comic book run called Jason Voorhees vs. Freddy vs. Ash Williams, and that book showed Jason killing Freddy after he gains the abilities from the Necronomicon, which is the evil book from Ash Williams' universe. So he can stand up to some pretty powerful characters. I don't think this is super likely because the rights for him have been all over the place for years now, but I think if you want to go with a more out there pick that is away from the natural superhero route that this game has followed up to this point, he could be a very cool candidate. So that's my list. What do you think? Are my opinions based or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below if there are any other characters you think should be included and any characters that you want from the Invincible universe. In the next couple of weeks, I plan to make a DLC wishlist for the rest of the characters from the Invincible franchise and do a more standardized predictions video instead of a wish list one. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and I'll see you all next time.